Thank you, Mike. Always great. Appreciate it. I need 2 volunteers, and John, in a minute, we're just going to have you just step into that room right there. Just 2 volunteers. Okay, you and anybody else? Okay, over there, and just wait till we send you, and we're just going to send you into that room, right? For a second. No, go ahead and head over there. But I'm saying we'll send you. You don't have to go in the room yet. All right. But how is everybody? Maybe you didn't hear me. Let me try it again. How is everybody? Great. Okay, great. Listen, maybe I need to explain it because I'm not asking about how you are physically, that you ran 160 miles this week, that you're on a keto diet, 2 Mediterranean diets, 3 paleo diets all at the same time, and that your trainer passed out this morning trying to keep up with you. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm really talking about mentally, because this is going to be intense a little bit. I need you sharp and soft at the same time. But you know, reality is like that. It's contradictory. You're going to see that in this presentation. When I say sharp, try to be insightful in terms of what I'm showing you. And sometimes you may have to cut from something you thought about in the past. And soft as a sponge, right? So doctors do that all the time. They cut, and then obviously they sponge. So we're going to have a lot of things. I have a big challenge here. I'm really here to change how you understand reality itself. And that's a big challenge to try to do in a half an hour. That's why I'm going to take you through a process. I'm going to show you a video. Then I'm going to make a request. Then we're going to do a concept modeling experiment in 1 minute and 30 seconds live. Then I'm going to get to demos, and then I'm going to get to questions. My strength is actually in the questions, because this isn't something I can tell you. You have to experience it. So are you ready for that? How is everybody? Good? Great. How many of you seen The Matrix? Obviously, we know that, right? How many probably know what the scene is? Everybody, this is the first time Neo meets Morpheus. Morpheus is going to ask him a question, right? Red pill, blue pill, a choice that he has to make. And so everybody just watch it. I cut it in half because of time-wise. But I want you to watch it as if it's actually real, all right? And we'll get started right after that.
Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life, that there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. Do you know what I'm talking about?
The Matrix.
Do you want to know what it is? The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth.
What truth?
That you are a slave, Neo. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind. Unfortunately, no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, Nothing more. Follow me.
All right. So I would just want to say, actually, can everyone hear me, by the way?
Would you like to be a part of this history?
I'm going to shut that off, but sorry about that. There we go. From a concept modeling point of view, 90% of that is actually true. Actually true, and you're going to see that in the next 25 minutes, right? But you probably don't believe me, so I need you to decide if you want to take that blue pill. I only have a few of them because the last group, they took them, right, instead of the red pill, right? So I have red pills here, right? Of course, these are jelly beans, right? So here's what this means. It means three things plus one. Number one, let go of your human ego. Let go. In a lot of ways, some of the things I'm going to do is going to challenge that. And, you know, everyone, and so just let go. Or if you think I have an ego, just know, let go. It's all human. The second is about the obvious. How you deal with the obvious. If I point to this, just go with the obvious. Don't assume I'm trying to trick you. And the third is actually to be honest. Part of the clip you didn't see was Neo's girlfriend saying, listen, let me give you advice. Just be honest. I need all that. All that you're gonna see right now. Plus, you have to let me be myself, right? Not high marketing, but the truth. All I can do is give you the truth, but you have to experience it. So I really want to go for it here, all right? So, are you ready? Cool. So we're going to do a concept modeling experiment. I really need you sharp. When I say stop, stop. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can put them in the room now. Doesn't have to be perfect, but you need to stop. So turn to the person next to you, partner up. I want you A, B. A, raise your hand, but turn to the next person. And if you can't find a partner, just answer these questions to yourself, but out loud. All right, so turn to your partner. Are you ready? I'm going to give you 4 seconds to find a partner, and we'll do this thing. Ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I want the A's to ask the B's, what is an idea? Give me your best definition of an idea in 5 seconds, and I'm counting. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Cut it. Cut. Okay, now I want the A's to ask the B's this question exactly the way I say it. Well, what's a concept then? I'm going to give you 7 seconds here. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Cool. All right, cut. So I'm going to ask, what's your name? Sorry?
Lee.
Lee. So I'm going to ask Lee the same question, but if you can tell them and just relax, right? Tell me, what's your definition of an idea in 5 seconds or less? Just what comes to mind.
Definition of idea?
Yeah.
It's a good question.
Yeah. Any 5, 4, 3, 2.
Anything you brainstorm intuitively in your mind.
Cool. That's cool. And then what's a concept then?
Concept is something fragile and virtual. You cannot touch. Is
Cool.
belief.
Cool. That's very good. Thank you. Very smart. So just stand here. Please come up. Come up. We'll ask this question, and then we'll be ready to go. Get water. Hi. We're really in a race, but let me ask you, Christian, is it?
Yes.
Tell me what's your definition of an idea in less than 5 seconds.
An idea is a concept that comes in one's mind to solve a problem.
Cool. Then what's a concept then?
A concept is, I guess, an observation that you hold in your mind.
Oh, very good. So both are great answers, right? And thank you. Let's give them a round of applause and go ahead and sit down. So here's the real, now we're going to go down the rabbit hole, I promise you, but be with me, right? Everyone's going to do the A. Do I have A's for following this? The red pill, right? How many of you, when you asked this question or saw it, felt there was a little bit of confusion there, right? Between asking people, raise your hands, cool. And how many of you, when they said idea, did they say concept? We saw one that way. And how many, when you said concept, did they say idea? Cool. So the foundation of my work is all about that, right? Because everything, let me just get this going. There we go. Dictionary definitions say an idea is a concept. Amazing. And the dictionary definition of a concept is an idea or a conception. That's like saying an auto is an automobile. It doesn't make sense, right? The second definition is what most people will say. It's an idea with all its particulars. The amazing thing, all they're saying, it's just a bigger idea, right? But here's the key. Ideas and concepts are two separate things. In fact, they represent two separate worlds. Everything is dependent on that. Everything. From Galileo to Newton to Einstein to Niels Bohr, right? To Feynman, right? To the Beatles, Beethoven, Mozart, to all the tech guys you love, right? From Ford to Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, the guys who did Uber. Yet everything in history is dependent on that we were never educated on the difference. So what that means is, and this is a part, everything you were taught about concept is actually wrong. And by implication, extension, everything you were taught about ideas, right, is flawed at best. Now, remember part 3 of taking the red pill is that you have to be honest. You probably don't believe that, and you shouldn't. I would think if you said, oh yeah, I get that, you might be not telling the truth, right? I need that, because in 25 minutes, I'm going to show you this. I'm not going to tell you till then. There are 2 reasons for it. One, you'll go, oh yeah, I should have known that, right? And number 2 is critical. But like we just saw that video clip, I want it in the back of your mind, right, as a splinter there, so you can get to know this. So here's perhaps the proof. Keep this in mind. The failure rate in business, right? Everybody has different statistics on this. 55 probably recorded, right? 70, they say. I think a guest here a few weeks ago said 90%. So all these courses you're taking, all these books you're reading, all these things, something's missing. And that's what I felt in terms of my work. Something was missing. That piece is concept. So how many of you, by the way, I just want to get a sense, how many of you are working on an idea? Cool. Look around the room. And it could be idea for what you're going to do this weekend, could be idea for new technology, could be idea how you're going to get home, right? Here's the problem. That is actually impossible to do. And again, you may not believe me, but in 25 minutes, or as fast as I can get there, it's going to change a little bit your perspective on this, right? Because there's a twist there. But you need to understand it, because then it's going to give you an insight as to what concept is. This is my woolly page, the wool being pulled over your eyes. We live in a world of ideas. It's all in the execution. Ideas are a dime a dozen. I invest in management teams, experience marketing. I'm an idea guy. Lean Startup is just perfect. I help implement time. Here's the deal. I'm an idea guy. It doesn't mean what you think it does. Lean Startup is proof of that slavery I was talking about. I help implement all the concepts all the time. That's impossible to do. No, and it's probably a bad idea. Now, that goes probably against everything, again, that you're thinking of, and I need you to be honest about that, right? So I'm going to explain, we live in a totally different world, right? They say that, how many of you heard we all live in a world of ideas? Everybody? Things like that. Ideas do not exist in our world. We live in a world of concepts, and that's a totally different business. How many of you heard this one? It's all in the execution, right? How many sort of believe that? Be honest, right? Cool. So here's the thing. In physics, if you have a theorem and there's a statement that goes against that theorem, you either have to throw out the theorem or you got to adjust it, right? So in this few seconds, I'm going to show you one reason that it's flawed. You have a team perfectly execute on a screen door in a submarine. It's still going to what? there's your screen door, there's your submarine, right? It's still going to sink. That means there's an issue with that, right? So, dime a dozen. How many of you heard that, right? What about a penny for your thoughts? I'm kind of interested because dime a dozen, penny for your thoughts, I guess you get a discount for 12, right? But here's the deal. I'm going to take this dime. If you still believe it, I've got it. Disappear there. If you still believe this is true, come after the show, basically. You give me 12 ideas. I'll jam the dime right in your ear, right? Because you got to remember that ideas are free. But here's the thing. Ideas are a dime a dozen. That's an alliteration. It doesn't mean what it was meant, what you think it means, right? How cute that they say this. But I want to go to the dozen. The truth is, ideas are dozen taken to the exponent of a trillion, 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 trillion. In other words, ideas by their nature are infinite. Concepts are not. So this is the problem when you're an entrepreneur, is that you're working on your idea, and ideas are infinite. So how do you ever get to the close of your idea, right? How do you get there? How many of you have been working on an idea for a month? How many for 6 months? How many for over a year? How many for over 3 years? It's all in difference between concepts and ideas. So I'm just going to tell you what I do. I work on films, I work on technologies, but I deconstruct the essence underneath it. So when you study marketing concepts, finance concepts, law, legal concepts. I'm just saying, no university in this world would teach you physics without teaching you math first. How is it we teach all these concept-based disciplines without teaching concept first? That's because we do not know the true definitions and the nature of concept. So now I'm going to go into demos. Instead of talking about it, I need to show you it. I'm just going to take a sip here. So how many guess what's the greatest disruptive technology ever, or innovation? Just shout out some things. Internet, cool. All that stuff. Telephone, what? iPhone, right? Cool. So all of you probably use this today, here or at least in the past week. So let's walk through this one. It's so interesting to me. This is related to this, right? So what I just showed you, once you see it, it's number 2. So obvious, right? We go, oh, well, that's obvious. The whole thing about it is the guys who made this did not make this, right? And so, remember, they made it, those flip-out ears. Do you remember that? I can't find them anymore. Have you ever seen? I've been looking for weeks for this. All I could find was in this little thing here. That's what's left. This is one of the most disruptive things ever. And I'll show you why. Why does it matter, what I just showed you? Because today, approximately 1 billion Java jackets are sold each year, and that was 2013. 1 billion. The owner of that, if he just makes 1 cent, what's 1 billion times 1 cent? Anybody? $10 million. If he makes 5 cents, $50 million. 1 billion people sold a year. That's unbelievable. And it completely displaced this. That's kind of fascinating, right? It's amazing. For me, it's one of the most disruptive technologies, and it is a technology, right? So I kind of want to show you how concept works and how it's different. So let's say I don't want you to see this. I want you to pretend you see it in your mind, right? So I have this cup, the idea. I have ideas behind it, right? So one of them is for heat, right? For coffee. Another one is container right here, right? But let's say I could change this one from heat into to toast a bride and groom in a wedding, right? All of a sudden, you'd see this here. That's what's brilliant about ideas, is they shift in a billionth of a second, you'd suddenly see this. Yet these two things are the exact same. Remember I said ideas and concepts are different? Here, with this concept of container, you can never extract it from this, no matter how hard you try, right? You can't do that. That's an amazing property of concept that's different than an idea. You had the concept was in the abstract world, but it's also in the material world. As I talk about in my book, your eyes are trained to capture the light. Your mind is trained to capture the concept, right? When you're in fog and things like this, you can't see, your mind goes nuts. But once you look at this, then you can recognize that a container, and half a sight is to recognize it as a container. So now I want to do a concept experiment that'll take a billionth of a second. Oh, well, there's the sleeve there, excuse me. Concept is where the disruptive is. So we're going to do a concept experiment in one billionth of a second. I'm going to say one word, and I want you to capture what that picture is. Remember I said cut and absorb that. When I say one word, capture what the image is. Airplane, airplane. You got it? How many of you saw something like this? Okay. And how many of you saw something, it'll come up, like this? Cool. So here we go. Let's get that. So again, raise a hand. How many saw an A? How many saw B? So if you were investing, which one would you invest in? They're really, really similar. But if you had a choice and had to make a decision in 5 seconds, how many would choose A to invest in? And how many would choose B? Is there a reason? Tell me.
Well, because that's proof of concept.
Yes.
See it work.
Right. So your mind, it can capture it two different ways, right? It can capture just the idea, or it can capture the concept. So there are two elements here, and that's fascinating with your mind. This shows you the concept. It also shows you an idea, but it's showing you basically an idea plus idea and flight. So that's how your mind works. So the first part of the definition, by the way, is the whole plane. The way your mind pictures things, right? In the abstract world, ideas present themselves as wholes. How many of you, when I said airplane, just saw a tire? How many just saw one seat? You have to recognize the nature of an idea is to show you the concept. That's what it's trying to do. So it shows you the whole. Ideas are abstract wholes. That's half the definition of an idea, and it's totally separate from concept. So I want to talk about the Wright Brothers. How many of you know who the Wright Brothers are? Raise your hand and look around the room. How many raise your hand? Cool. So here's the concept question. How many of you know who Sir George Cayley is? Look around the room. Nobody. I've never asked that question, and no one's ever been able to tell me. Here's the thing. That is the difference between idea and concept, and that's the key to your idea. How do you get to disruptive? The Wright brothers basically built an idea, right, a machine that catered to the concept of flight. That concept was discovered by Sir George Cayley 111 years before the Wright brothers. No George Cayley, no Wright brothers. That concept is aerodynamics. So imagine your idea. You're in an infinite world. So you could be there for 2 centuries still working on your idea, right? But if your idea doesn't cater to concept, what happens? It's going to crash, right? So as you learn to separate idea from concept, it'll actually help you with your ideas. I'd like for you guys to invest, technically, right, on this next one. Let's have some fun. Let's invest. Let's pick out 2. Let me pick out 2. Anybody? Point to 2. How about these 2? So let's say you have $1 million. I'm a manufacturer, right? And I'm going to give you 2 million of these, either this one or this one, because I got to set my machines. Once they're set, it's just easier for me, right, to print a lot of them. I can tell you both of these sell about the same right now. And this one sells for like $5. This one sells for $1. Which one would you buy? And just obvious. What's the obvious choice? This one? Right.
Left.
Why left? Just curious.
Well, I think you can do it. You got 2 channels of distribution: direct to consumer
Cool.
and business to business.
Right. And I was just saying that they both sell about the same, right? So you can do level change. So here's the thing. This, and by the way, when I say abstract stuff, I'm going to push it aside. You can ask me afterwards. This has a defect in it. And the amazing thing it shows you about disruptive technologies and all this thing, it has a concept in it that you do not know is there. The abstract term is negacept. There's only one type of idea. There are lots of types of concepts. One of them is a negacept. I'll give you the definition. Negacept is a concept that derives its nature from the negation of another concept. You have it in your car. That's the brake. Superman has kryptonite, right? So all these things. This has a negacept. So the radius of this is double the other one. That means the surface space of this is 4 times your other coffee cup. That means it cools down. That means if you take this home for your wife or your husband, you're going to start to complain, hey, the coffee's cooling down, honey. Something's wrong with the machine, right? And the thing about it, if I write about this and do an article, this market's going to totally crash, even if it sells, because the function of this is a technology. It's to keep your hand cold, the coffee hot, right? If it doesn't work, you got to get up. You'd be talking to your friends here, and then you'd have to go back and heat it up. So this is a failure. And if you can have concept defects in this, something so simple, and you use every day, right? Think about it in terms of technologies. That's what I do in films. They give me it, and I deconstruct the essence underneath it to find defects. Does that make sense, by the way? Anybody? Yes? No? Go ahead.
Just a different concept. It's not for coffee, it's for comfort. It should be cool.
Excuse me? Oh, well, they've been using it for coffee, that's all. So if you want to use it, but I'm just saying if you were to sell it as a coffee, right? So if you were to package it that, yeah, every cups have different purposes, but smart. Cool. So now I want to talk about you investing in cell phones, right? This time you can go back in time and buy anything, but I'm just going to give you a condition that you have to pick one of the ones that's the biggest selling phone of all time, right? The companies that do that. And this is pretty obvious, right? This is a Nokia, right? And this is, what is this, everybody? You can see it? Huh? iPhone. No, it's not. And that's a problem. I didn't ask what it's called. I asked what it is. Right? It's not a smartphone either, right? They just call it that. This is a computer that has apps, right? And one of the apps, only one, right, is a phone. Now, remember I said about the obvious? Once I say it, everything is obvious. Everything in history is obvious in hindsight, right? Nike, oh, I should have done that, right? The internet, oh, we should have done that. Nuclear bombs are even, right? Obvious in hindsight. What's the point of this? Showing you something, because every company that created phones is out of business, technically, right? I mean, they're in the market. Nokia's trying to come back, right? But they're out of business, and that's about your business. The idea is one level. The concept underneath this shifted. For me, this is not disruptive tech innovation at all. The reason it's not a phone, it's something totally different. It's a supernova. The word definition of innovation is used incorrectly a lot of the times. It means into new, taking something old and making a new solution for it. This is innovation, right? The sleeves, taking this old solution to hold the cup into new. Now, you can still call it that, right? People are going to say that, but in terms of the discipline of concept modeling, the way I succeed is I separate the idea from the concept, and I kind of model that. So, if you were investing, guess what? This, I don't believe, out of the top 10 selling phones of all time, Nokia has 7 of them. How is that possible? 7. It's because of when they came out, right? And Apple, they always do version 1, version 2, that's a new phone, version 3, version 5, right? We're on 11, we're going to go. So let's say you're an investor, and you have a guy here who's going to say, look, I'm going to build a phone. I just want to capture 10% of Apple. Oh, wow, let's do it, right? And we're going to build a computer that has apps, and one of them will be a phone. Probably you're going to be out of business in a few years, right? Because this is going to change from a computer into a platform to reach your computer, right? But all that depends on the space, battery space, and convenience. It's just that you've got to be watching out for the future. You don't look at for the idea, which is the color, the shape, right? Oh, we're going to have 3 cameras. What's the concept in there? And you know what? The camera kind of proves it's not a phone. It's more of a camera now, almost, right? It's a communication device. Does that make sense, too? I did a concept model on baseball, which is where I created some of this stuff. And how are we doing time-wise? Oh, cool. So, remember I said the obvious, right? So everyone, do you know the history of baseball? This came first, and this is based on a baseball, right? Everyone agree? It's not. This is not based on a baseball. This is one of my favorite things. Do you know what it's based on? A softball. They're both round, so they're pretty close. Softball is based on this. It's amazing. So what happened was these guys were playing in a boathouse. They had the oars, of course, but they were looking for something like a ball. They couldn't find it, so they rolled this up, taped it, right? And so suddenly, if you feel it, you can feel how baseballs, softballs are made on that. What's the point of all this? The point is that concept is not obvious, right? Concept is not a bigger idea. It's not. It's not a structure. It's not a bigger idea. It's not a strategy. Concept is actually abstract essence. The technical definition from my book is the nature, it's the structure, the activity, and the philosophy of abstract essence, right? Rolled in both concepts and ideas or pure thought. An idea, in a simple term, is a possibility. That's all it is. They do not exist in our world because yesterday, or 2 days ago, you had no idea, right, in your head, even though you did, right, for other things. But suddenly you get this idea for a cup, disposable cup, right? It's an idea. 6 months later, it's sitting right here. But once it's sitting here, the idea is gone. It's replaced by the thing itself, right? And the thing about that, you say, well, no, I see the idea. You're seeing a reflection of what I was thinking when I built it, right? So ideas do not exist in our world, but concept, a container, the nature of this thing, right, still exists. So it's not a bigger idea. It's a totally different world. And as I said, the abstract world actually splits into two, ideas and concepts. Once you learn that, then you're going to take your idea or something you're going to invest in, right, and suddenly look for the concept underneath it and make sure it works that way. But we were never trained on this discipline, so that's kind of my work. So, I can tell you a lot of stories, but I'd leave it to the questions, if that's good. Hopefully, that's an introduction to this thing, right? Reality, if you look around the room, look around really quickly, you see 1,000 things. Cavemen didn't do that. They live in a world where that thing could kill you, right? The natural world. So they'd look at the concept. Military men do it as well, right? If you see a car coming down, you don't even think about it. But they have to say, is that a driver? Is he a killer? Is there a bomb in there? Can they run me over, right? You're thinking concept, the essence of what that thing could do, right? But in our real world, we can't do that. So we literally, evolution did this. We shut down the concept side of our mind. Literally, we did that. Because if you look around the room, a caveman would go nuts in this room. It's too much. So you throw things into the obvious. That was the number 2 thing, right? And again, one of the secrets to stepping into concepts is to let go of the ego. Because if I walk up to somebody and they tell me their idea and I say, well, I can help, they're going to say, well, I thought of it. It's not about your idea. It's about the nature of ideas themselves, right? Today, one last example, then I'll answer it. Joseph Priestley, right? Everyone knows what air is, right? Everybody. But cavemen knew what air was, right? The definition of death, he stopped breathing. It wasn't until Priestley in 1774 he discovered that this thing has oxygen in it, this thing called air. It didn't change your breathing, right? Before concept modeling, everybody's making great movies, great stuff, of course, right? But if you want to get to the moon, you have to understand that air has oxygen. So when you take your profession and you take your technology, and again, for me, it's movies, you deconstruct the essence, you separate the two, then it's something. So that's encourage you, learn this. It'll change your lives, as it did in me, February 6, 1989. but it was a challenge to try to introduce it. So for questions...
Thank you, Winston. That was amazing. Please give him a round of applause. I should not have taken 2 red pills before this presentation, because now I'm just like... So we're going to open up to Q&A. Make sure you're asking a question. This is not a time to talk about the red pill you took and the concept that you are now thinking of. So John, please walk around.
And don't tell us about the blue pill that you took either. Winston, that was an interesting talk. Any questions?
Yes.
Hi, thank you. I was wondering if you can give us maybe like a brief case study when you talked about working on a film, so we could see this in action.
Sure.
Maybe if you could say what the original plot, what the original story was, and what change you made and why.
Cool. Okay, great. So I work on a lot of films. A lot of them I can't talk about, but I'm going to talk 2 for you. One was The Crow, a remake of The Crow, right? So they give me the script, and my manager will tell you, I can't tell if it's good. These are the best writers in the world. Some of them that I've read, spectacular, you want to eat the script. But The Crow is one good example, right? So, and I can probably show it, but I'll just talk about it time-wise. So when I read the script, it was great. But when I deconstructed it, they based... anybody see the original movie, by the way? Some people? The original movie is based on revenge. These sequels were based on retaliation. They all tanked, right? So then they asked me, they're going to do a new sequel. They're still in process, right? They asked me to look at that script. Now, if you're in a pitch room or you're working with ideas, right, you're going to hear, well, I like revenge movies. Oh, yeah, I love retaliation movies. You can't separate. They sound exactly the same, right? But here's the deal. Retaliation is you hit me, I hit you right back. You threaten me, I threaten you right back. It's instant. It's immediate. Right? And sometimes you can't tell which are the good guys or bad guys. The concept of revenge, in essence, takes time. Right? And if you watch the original Crow, the guy is killed. Right? It's only a year later that he resurrects. Right? If you saw Count of Monte Cristo, that's the longest one, right? 23 years, right, to do that. Gladiator, I think it's 5 years till he gets back. So completely, totally different. Why is that important to the audience? Because the audience, it starts to build, right? You see his girlfriend who was beautiful. You see the life he had, and you're like, oh my God, you should get revenge, right? The fascinating thing, so I get up at 4 a.m. when I'm concept modeling, so I have 6 hours of just working on one word, which was revenge. It wasn't until 10 days later that I saw another element of the nature of revenge, right? And that is, if you watch the movie, he does not take revenge at the end, because then you sort of become part of the bad guy. What he does, they're fighting the good guy against the bad guy. The good guy takes his hands, puts it on the head of the bad guy, and shows him all the evil that he went. He goes, ugh, and he falls off the cathedral and impales himself, right? So you have to know that if you're gonna do a movie, right, about revenge. You can't make it about retaliation. There are 10,000 things that come off of that. But I'm going to show you a movie that you probably recognize, which is Shawshank Redemption. Do you know that film? Do you all love it? Okay, how many of you have been accused of murder, put in prison for life, and escaped 35 years later, 1 inch at a time? Nobody? Usually there are 2 guys, yo, right? And say, I'll talk to you later. Here's the thing. There's story. Everybody thinks it's about story. Story is a concept, by the way. But that story is, you're in prison, you get the heck out, right? So there have been 161 Prison Break films. That is one of the greatest of all time. In fact, it's rated as one of the best movies ever. Why? You can't relate to it. Has anybody here fought Godzilla? Anybody? Or anybody friends with Batman fighting this afternoon? Anybody marooned on Mars? You can't relate to stories. You can't unless it has a concept. The concept of that is hope, right? That's the area that I model. So for technology, I'm doing a television show now, been just getting back into town, but you have to spend all the time in quiet, and modeling it. Here's the thing about revenge, about hope. This, I talk about it in front of me. Look at this. It's disposable. It's clean. You can get rid of it, right? It keeps it hot. Hope is right here. You talk about it in its absence. Everybody watch that film again. Every scene is essay on hope. But all the characters relate to hope. One is losing hope. One has already lost hope. One has it. The young guy is killed, so it's cut off. And the main character's like you and I, getting it beaten out of them every day of our lives, right? Flat tire, problem at work, deal doesn't go through. Some guy gets to talk I don't understand, right? All those things that happen. That's what we can relate to. So you realize how much hope he had to have to dig out of that. So I've done lots. I'm doing 2 for big actors right now, but we're signing the contracts. I'm probably getting a deal today with another studio, but so you keep your fingers crossed on that. What I do is forget story, forget all that stuff. Let's get to the noun, and let's model that. What is hope? But hope, concept, prison. How does that shift hope? And then how does everything relate to that? And then how does that connect to the audience? So my favorite work at all. But remember, this is real innovation. This is the future. I'm saying that to help you. But to fight Hollywood and do all this stuff, it's taken a long challenge. But I did Bugs Bunny. I did some work, DreamWorks and Warner Brothers and NBC. I did technology. So anyways, hopefully that answers your question. Yeah. Hopefully it helped. Does that help a little?
Hi.
Yeah.
So I'm still struggling a little bit
Yeah.
with something you said, which was ideas and concepts have some fundamental difference. Because the way you've described it is every idea seemed to be like, if you had a language of just 150 words, so just really simple core ideas, those all seem to be ideas. But if you have more language and complexity, all of those are concepts.
Oh, cool.
And okay.
Yeah, cool. Well, they're related, right? Here's the problem, in fact, in scripts. I will get the concept, but they turn it back into an idea. So I have a presentation on it, but time-wise, I can show you. But here's the deal. Early on in history, words were based on concept, right? So you called a monkey is based on the word mimic, horse, hoofed runner. But suddenly Ford is not based on concept, right? A machine that's like that, Ford or Ferrari, all those things, they're based on somebody's name or an idea, right? Pontiac, whatever, right? The real concept of an automobile is automobile, right? So sometimes they blend. Like if you have a list, you have to deconstruct it to see if it's an idea or not. That's also part of our history. What happened is so much stuff, and I'm going to explain it. Evolution talks about it. Well, they suggest it. There's a story in the Bible, and I'm talking not in terms of religion, I'm talking about history, called the Tower of Babel. Everyone know that story? Why do we know that story? So in evolution, what happened is people were coming off the plains in a oneness, right? Nature is a oneness. They say you can only hold 7 things in your mind. So some of that was a club, maybe some clothes, maybe some meat, maybe some agave rope, right? Suddenly you enter this first civilization, which is what Babel was. Overwhelming. You've all seen the story in some ways of a frozen caveman let go and de-thawed in New York City. In this room, he would go nuts. But add the sound, the smells, all those things, right? You had to shut down. You couldn't name everything. You just throw out all these names. It was overwhelming, right? So suddenly language starts to change. You didn't base it on concept. Right? And I tell you, this has been a struggle, 44 years journey. I made a discovery in 89, and trying to communicate it, trying different ways, people didn't get it. And it was only 4 years ago that there was a documentary, and it mentioned Tower of Babel. So I went to read that, and it hit the 2 things that I face. The element of ego and the element of concept of obvious. If you take idea and concept, you get confused. So we all have that confusion, right? I'm not smarter than anybody. I just know the difference. Just had that, massive Eureka moment on all those things. So and I'll talk to you later if that helps. But let me just say one thing. I walked away and I concept modeled in the Tower of Babel all this stuff in my book. So you can read about it if you like. I'm not here to push books. I'm here to explain this discipline. Here's the thing. Babel means confusion. You saw it in this room this morning. We are confused about idea and concept, right? It's unbelievable. Like, I was going to talk about airplanes for a second, but where does the inspiration for planes come from? What? Birds, right? So here's the thing with trial and error and all this stuff, right? The approach that's now. Everybody who seriously did trial and error and imitated birds is dead. Who's seriously dead. Because birds do the one thing no plane today, right, does. And what's that? They flap. You're smart, very smart, yes. They flap. I've never seen a plane flap. And you say, oh, well, you imitate wings. Well, a lot of people did that, right? Let's have a beer. Let me try this, honey. Bye-bye. Famous last words, right? You have to imitate the concept of aerodynamics. And scientists don't really know exactly. There's still questions on how they work. They can do the math and do all this stuff, right? So it's not the wing even. It's the nature of the foil, right, and how that happens. That's with your idea. You got to separate the idea. It's like color, blue, green, orange. That's separate. You have to concept model. Otherwise, you're enslaved to trial and error. That's how we lost so many people in that. And today, that's a big thing, trial and error. We just didn't have another method. And if you go read Tesla, Nicholas Tesla, do you like him? He'd never accept trial and error, never. Because basically what he was doing was concept modeling things. But you have to know how to do it. It takes me 6 weeks just to do things like that. Yeah, any other questions? I can go on forever. Yes?
Yes. So, thank you. It was interesting to learn about the concept and idea. I didn't know. I learned the differences. But my question is, what is the difference between self-esteem and confidence? And is there any idea or concept behind it?
Self-esteem?
And confidence.
Yeah, self-esteem. Well, I would have to spend a week on each one of those words, right? So I think self-esteem might come from interior and confidence, confi, with faith. So you have to go back to the origin of words. That's what I spent a lot of time. So confi, it's Latin, right? With faith. So you have a belief that whatever you're doing is going to work out. Self is how you feel about yourself, right? Esteem, I have to look up the word origin of that. But that's me concepting here. I'd literally spend, I'm doing a show. I just spent, this whole week just on a couple of words on the name of the show. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I study architecture before, so we play a lot with idea and concept. My understanding of concept is that, can I say the concept is how we see things, whereas idea is that we think about how things can be.
Cool.
So you can discover concept, but you cannot invent concept.
Yes.
But you can invent idea, but idea is not something to discover.
Yeah,
what do you think?
Brilliant, perfect. I write about architecture in my book, but here's the thing. Ideas are like the blueprint, right? So you have an idea for a building, and so you put it, and you have this possibility of building. Once a building is built, you throw away, right, the blueprint, or you store it, maybe you come back and use it, but technically it's no longer in use. So you're right, possibilities. Look around the room, everything is different that you see here, right? This, you, me, we're all different things, but we're all made of one thing, molecules. Concept is the same. Every idea, going back to yours, has to have some concept in it, right? And the concept can be, it just sounds good, or it's my name, all this kind of stuff. So you can be articulate. The other thing is, the only thing about architecture is you have a blueprint. In my book, I talk about a purple print. So here's the difference. I got a building. I have the blueprint. But now, architects do this intuitively. They say, how am I going to design the blueprint because it's for a hospital versus a corporate headquarters? Right? So suddenly you are analyzing concepts like, an emergency entrance. I need big windows, needs to be exclusive. So suddenly that's how you're creating the blueprint that's going to be there, right? And so that's how you create great architecture. So it's separate. As I said, every discipline is based on concept. Why don't we teach it? Because we don't know it. Now, again, we kind of do know it. Of course you know what an idea is. And you have a sense for concept. But if you want to get to the moon, you got to move from air to oxygen. And in architecture, very smart, right? That essence, how things are. The material world is based on the abstract world, not the other way around. We know more about the Big Bang and quantum physics than we do about concept, honest to God. Yet quantum physics is a grouping of concepts. The Big Bang is a concept. But you see, we do it intuitively. In movies, artists do this intuitively. I have a process to do what they do intuitively. I can capture it because intuition can be off because we were never trained on how to use intuition, never trained. So we just got a gut feel. And once you lock it in, like Steve Jobs suddenly has a vision, that's concept, bam, you slam it, right? His vision on this is going to be so obvious, is cool. So obvious, cool. Technology is cool. That's why Iron Man exists. But what happens when you shifted that? Remember, IBM would do computers, and afterwards, let's make it cool. That's not concept. Here, you start with concept, and he turns to the software guys. Make it work cool. Make it look cool. Make the marketing look cool. Is this cool? This is cool. My manager said, well, how do you know that? Oh, and I asked him, what do you think about that? Oh, it's cool. There you go. It's the invisible essence of abstract essence, but it's a philosophy. The future is in activity. It's activity, too. Everything that exists is an activity. A stone has activity. Molecules running around. Hopefully that helps. Yeah. Okay, so I'll just be 6 minutes.
Okay, quickly. Yeah. You've mentioned 1989 twice. Mm-hmm. What was the incident in 1989 that caused the light bulb to go off in your head?
I can show you if you want. I'll just tell you instead. I was working on a newspaper in high school. My principal let me skip school and launch a newspaper between all these schools. Brilliant, because that's what got me to this. In '89, I'm doing a new version, because I'm trying to create a newspaper that will be cool for teenagers. And suddenly I had two massive Eureka moments. The first was on the design. I suddenly recognized the design I had there. And the second, bigger wave, if you have tsunamis, sometimes the second one is bigger. The ideas and concepts are the same. So everybody's seen the Wall Street Journal? It's based on technology, the look of it, right? And it's so obvious. 1463, I forgot the exact date, Gutenberg invents the printing press. That's the design of the columns necessary to use that technology. In 1980, that technology gone forever with the introduction of the Mac. So I said, oh my God, the design I made was based on Mondrian. Anybody know Mondrian? I'll put up a picture of it, right? So suddenly I realized the design I had, I'd seen it before, and that's like Eureka Moment, right? Where is that from? Suddenly I realized it was Mondrian. Very simple. All newspapers today are based on technology. Doesn't exist anymore. Mine was based on art. It looks the same, but then it allows to change the whole look of a newspaper, yet make it look like a newspaper. I realize underneath that, there's a layer we don't know about, and that's with everything. I could talk, as you can tell, for weeks about it. So I can show you if you want afterwards. One more question? We done?
I think that was it. All right, round of applause. Thank you, Winston.
Thank you.